Hello, Year 9 and 10 from Mrs Mitchell's Virtual Kitchen. Today I think Mrs Green and I have asked you to be making some either flaky pastry or puff pastry. We're considering the functions of ingredients, and so Mrs Green asked if I would mind doing you a demonstration so that you can hopefully follow it through. Now you have got two options that you can be making. You can either make flaky pastry or puff pastry, and she's given you the recipes for both. I've had a look at the two recipes. The recipe I've chosen to make today is the flaky pastry. The reason for this, because obviously at the moment we're in a time where it's hard to get hold of certain ingredients, I don't have masses of butter, and I noticed that the flaky pastry uses a bit less butter. So, first things first, I have got plain flour, 200 grams in a bowl here. The other reason I went for this recipe is because it uses plain flour and not the strong plain flour, and at the moment strong plain flour or bread flour is quite hard to get hold of. So 200 grams of plain flour into the bowl. I have sprayed my surfaces down before I started. I'm going to just put a pinch of salt in there, and then to that I've got my 150 grams of fat. Now I know in Mrs Green's recipe it asks you for 75 grams of butter and 75 grams of lard. I don't have any lard at home, and at the moment obviously we're only going out shopping for emergencies, so I'm using 150 grams of butter because that's what I've got in. Please can I urge you not to try making flaky or puff pastry with stalk soft margarine or some sort of soft margarine. It won't work for you. So I've got 150 grams of butter here, and then I've weighed out from this 150 grams 30 grams of butter, and then the other 120 grams I've cut into thirds, because you'll see why in a little while. I'm going to take the 30 grams of butter out of the 150, and I'm going to rub this into my flour. So as always when you're pastry making, chop your butter up into small pieces, and please don't let your butter go soft. If you tend to keep your butter out of the fridge, can I ask you to put it in the fridge for a couple of hours before you make this recipe. Butter's been cut up, and then I'd want to rub this in to the flour. Now because it's a very small amount of butter that I'm rubbing in, it won't look like breadcrumbs in quite the same way that short crust pastry would. Now remember, when you think you've got this rubbed in, your check is to shake the bowl with a full-on shake, and any large lumps come up to the surface. Now the other thing to say to you while I'm just doing this and taking a moment is this is a recipe that won't be a quick recipe to do or a recipe to make. So you want to maybe stagger this over the course of a day, maybe start it in the morning and keep coming back to it as and when your fat chills down. The idea being we're going to gradually incorporate fat into this. We're also going to gradually incorporate layers through making turns, which you'll see in a minute. And then we need the fat to chill back down again before we start rolling it out. So you'll see as we go through, it takes quite a long time, and there'll be quite a lot of moments where I leave the video and rejoin you when time has elapsed. Right, that is the breadcrumbs made, or the fat rubbed in. Give it a shake, no large lumps come to the surface. The next thing now, I'm going to be referring to Mrs Green's recipe here and there, so bear with me. I then need 100 ml of cold water. As with all pastry making, make sure that your water is as cold as possible. So it asks for 100 ml, but I might not need 100 ml, so bear that in mind and add gradually. Remember, you can always add more water, you can't take it out. So I'm going to start with 4 tablespoons of water, and then my knife that I'd use to butter my bread, give that stir around. So at the moment some lumps are forming, but they're quite small, and I've got a lot of flour that isn't incorporated. So I've added 4 already. I'm going to add another 2 tablespoons of water. And again, give this a stir. Now we've got some larger lumps of pastry forming here, but still there's an awful lot of flour not incorporated, so I'm going to add 1.5 more tablespoons. So that nearly is my 100 mils of water added, and I have a feeling that will be about it. It would be very ironic if I did actually need the whole lot. I think I'm going to need the whole lot. Look at that. So 1 more tablespoon and that is it. So I've still got 1/2 tablespoon if I need it. Right. That has now made large lumps of pastry coming together. So I'm going to put the knife down, go in with my hands and just bring this together. Now remember, this is not bread dough. As I always say to you, this is a pastry. Be gentle with it, be kind to it, treat it nicely. So I've just brought that together with my hands and that has now made a dough. Now you're thinking, pastry's made and she's got a load of butter left, and I have indeed got a load of butter left. And this is where you need to watch carefully and try and follow this through. I'm going to take my rolling pin and I'm going to roll this dough, and I can just get it to stick together a bit. There we go. I'm going to roll this dough out. So a little bit of flour down to enable me to do that. And if it starts sticking to the worktop, then you need a little bit more flour down. Now I'm trying to make this about 25 centimetres long and about 12.5 centimetres wide, and if I can, I want it to be rectangular. Now this table is not the best. I've had to try al fresco to make this work because it's got tiles on the top of it, but I will do my best to try and make this work for you. Try to get it to a nice rectangle. Don't trim bits off if you think it's not going to quite go into a rectangle. Just do your best to get it into the right shape. I really wish there wasn't a split on that, but I'm going to join that together. And I think that is about 12 by 25-ish. Maybe a little bit more this way as well, just to make that work. Then I need to take 1/3 of my butter, which is here, and I need to imagine that this dough is in 3 equal thirds. So there's 1/3 there and 1/3 there. Now you don't have to mark this out, but it shows me now that I'm going to put this 1/3 of my butter that I've got left and dot it all over 2/3 of this dough. So I'm going to take little bits of it and I'm just going to dot it all over. The idea being that you're going to have butter in leaves in between. And when I say leaves, I don't mean leaves like on the tree, I mean like interleaved. So you'll have layers which have got butter in, and then as the butter cooks, or as the pastry cooks, the butter will make steam, because there's a lot of liquid in butter. And as it makes steam, it will make the layers that have got butter in between them rise, which will then make your pastry laminated and puffy. So there's the last little bits of that done. And then we're going to take the bottom 1/3, which has got no butter on it at all, and lift it up to the middle of the dough. So you're going to take the bottom 1/3, which you've got no butter on at all, or lard if you're using that, and take it up. You're then going to take the top 1/3 and you're going to put that over the top of the bit from the bottom. Over that goes. You're then going to seal in the ends using your rolling pin. So you're just going to squish the ends in, okay? And at this stage, you're going to chill it. I'm going to do absolutely nothing with it, and I'm going to chill it. Mrs. Green's recipe says 10 minutes. If you can leave it for 20 minutes or more, that is great. While this is chilling, we're going to stop the video, so I will rejoin you when mine has chilled for a period of time. I'm actually going to get on and do something else for 10 minutes or 20 minutes and then come back to it. So please, at this stage, wrap it in cling film, put it in the fridge, go do something else for 20 minutes and then rejoin this video. Okay, this has been chilling in the fridge for probably about half an hour now, because I've done a little clip for the year 7s and 8s on making vegetable couscous and stuffed peppers. So, I'm back with you now. This has come out the fridge. I've taken it out of its cling film and I've put it onto a lightly floured surface. Just a little bit of flour on the top as well. And then, this was the way round it was when I'd last finished working with it. And I turn it 90 degrees, so what was facing 12 o'clock on a clock face needs to go to 3 o'clock on a clock face. So it goes 90 degrees round. You're then going to roll this back out to make the same size that we were working on earlier. Okay. And you'll start to see some little bits of butter coming through here. So I want to make sure that I'm quite gentle how I'm working it. Again, I'm still being very careful. Oh, I can start to see butter coming through, I don't want to see that. To keep it in its rectangular shape. And then, again, I'm going to imagine that I've cut this a third and a third. I'm going to take the next bit of my butter. So you basically, once you've taken your 30 grams out to rub in as breadcrumbs, you divide the rest into 3. This is the second of the 3 that I've cut the butter up into. And again, I'm going to dot it on the top 2/3 of this dough. And it goes. Trying not to go onto that bottom third. Now, because my butter's been out while I carried on and did my other bits, this is very easy to do. Then you're going to do just like last time. You're going to lift the bottom third up to the middle, which hasn't got any butter on, up to the middle. And then the top third comes down to the middle. Just like last time, you're going to put your rolling pin on either end to hold it in place. Again, I'm going to wrap it in some cling film. I've kept my cling film from earlier. I'm going to wrap this in cling film and it's going to go back into the fridge and chill. And I want it to chill for at least 10 minutes, but actually I'm probably going to go do a couple of other jobs and come back to this in half an hour. So into the fridge to chill for as long as you can, and then I'll rejoin you when this has been in the fridge, like I said, about half an hour, and we'll add the last little bit of butter in. Okay? Okay, so this has been chilling in the fridge for about half an hour. I've come back to it, I've taken it out of its cling film, putting a little bit of flour down on the board again, and a little bit of flour on top of my pastry. Now I need to remember which way I folded this, so the last fold I made was from the third at the top down. So where I find the join here, I need to make sure that this does a quarter of a turn so that it's now facing in the opposite direction. Again, I'm going to roll this out to about the same size rectangle, and I want to not see the butter coming through. So I'm going to turn this round, and each of these turns that I'm doing, where I'm rolling the pastry out and the dough out, and then I'm folding it, each of those folds is going to be creating a layer, which is what we're after in puff pastry. We want nice layers. And puff pastry to make would take a lot longer than these. These are little shortcuts that you can do, which will make your pastry a bit quicker to make. So, there we go. I've got a nice rectangle this time. That's nice to see. So again, imagine that this has got 2/3, and take the last bit of your butter now, or if you've got lard, your lard, and again spread that on the inside. And by now, with the sun streaming through the windows, this butter is very soft. So maybe just to spread that over 2/3 of this dough. Now this is where it's a bit samey, because I think you can probably guess where this is going. But the next stage is to do our turns roll it up again, or fold it up again, and then put this, surprise, surprise, into the fridge again. So, first turn, if you remember, is to lift it from the bottom for a third up. I'm going to get that butter in there because I'd rather that butter was making my pastry nice and buttery. The second fold then goes from the top third over. Alright, just like we've done previously. And then going to, as always, go on either side to seal the butter in on the ends. And then just like previously, I'm going to take my cling film. I'm going to, if I can open it, cover this back up in the cling film, put it back in the fridge, at least 10 minutes. Now I'm going to say to you, I've left this half an hour. I would suggest to you at least half an hour. Like I said, this I think will be a nice job that you can do over a large chunk of the day, but you want your butter to be chilled a lot more than it was there. So where I could actually spread the butter with my fingers, you want that to be nice and firm. Okay, this is going to go back in the fridge now, and then I'll rejoin this video and just show you the last turn, and then I'll turn it into a dish for you. Thank you. So we're getting there with this flaky pastry. I've taken it out of the fridge, it's been about half an hour. And again, I'm looking at which way I would have folded it. So the last fold would have come from the top and over, so I can see from where the join is that that is the right way that I had it in front of me. So I turn it a quarter of a turn to the a quarter of a turn clockwise, and then I'm going to roll it out. I put a little bit of flour on the board, just like I have with every turn, and this will be our last turn before we then roll it out. And each of these turns is just adding more and more layers in, which is what we're wanting. And at this stage, still got that rectangle. I'm going to do one more fold, one more lot of turns. Let's just get it down, it's a little bit. Right. And again, just taking the bottom third upwards and the top third downwards. This is I'm going to go into the fridge. I'm going to chill it down for at least another 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, I'm then going to roll this out, and I'm then going to turn it into a dish. If you don't want to watch what I'm going to be turning this into, then when it comes out the fridge, you're going to do a quarter of a turn, roll it out again, and then turn it into the suggested dishes that Mrs. Green's given you on her recipe. However, if you'd like to watch what I'm going to turn this into, then watch the next video, which I'm going to call Salmon en croûte. Thanks ever so much.